Hello, everybody. Welcome to this lesson in breathwork practices and how to modify some very famous or familiar breathwork practices to meet your own needs depending on your quality of breathing. And we're going to start with something very familiar, and I'll kind of get into a lot of what the tenets of what I'm talking about are when talking about the box breathing, which is going to be our first one, and you'll kind of start to get an idea, maybe even before I get to the other exercises, of where I'm going with this. And so we'll start with the idea of box breathing. So everyone has heard of box breathing, which is a four-sized box. And this is a 4-second inhale, a 4-second hold at the top, a 4-second exhalation, and a 4-second hold at the bottom. This comes from pranayama tradition, also known as samavriti, and very popularized by some U.S. Navy SEALs. And then, of course, with James Netcher's book, Breath, almost everyone's heard of box breathing. But the 4-4-4 size box is not necessarily going to be the right way to practice this for all breathers, because you'll see that this is a 16-second breath when it comes to the final analysis of it. And that's going to leave someone with breathing about 3.8 breaths per minute. And for some breathers, especially in this modern era with a lot of dysfunctional breathing patterns in our population, people with sleep apnea, anxiety, asthma, we see that the four-size breath is simply too intense for some people, and they may want to make a modification. And the first modification that we can offer is reducing the size of the breath, the box, to a 3-3-3-3. A 3-second inhale, 3-second hold, 3-second exhale, and a 3-second hold at the bottom as an alternative. We can make it even smaller, going down to a 2-2-2-2. So the 3-3-3-3, the 3 box, is going to be a 12-second breath, and the 2 box is going to be an 8-second breath. Now, if you're someone who has sleep apnea, has high anxiety, has been told by your partner, friend, family member that you are a heavy, loud breather, perhaps you snore, you probably do not qualify to breathe with the 4-size box. And so I would encourage you to make some modifications, but you can test this out yourself. So go ahead and try some 4-size box breaths. If you find that on the inhalation that you are gasping for air, and by the way, don't do just one. You'll need to do about 10. So get into the pattern, do some box breathing, do 10 of them. And if by box number 10, you are just taking a big, loud gulp of air on the inhale, you probably have too low of a carbon dioxide tolerance and you need to go down to a smaller box. Many of my clients come in and I would have to start them on a 2-size box because their breathing is just so heavy. They're such hyperventilators. I see some people come in to my studio and they're breathing 30 breaths per minute. And if someone's doing that, they really, really should not be doing too intensive breathing exercises. I would start them on a 2-size box if I chose to do box breathing with them, which I do not always, it's not my go-to. And so this leads me to some other breathing exercises you might have heard of. So the 4, I wrote 4-5-7, that's not it. It's 4-7-8, 4-7-8 breathing. So I believe it's Dr. Weil, who is the one that popularized this breathing exercise. It is a 4-second inhalation, a 7-second hold at the top, and an 8-second exhalation. Now, for those who can perform this, very relaxing. It's a very long breath. The point of all these exercises is to get your carbon dioxide levels high and slowing down the speed of the exhalation. And so when we have these very long breaths, we can induce a very strong sense of calm. But 4 seconds plus 7 plus 8, that is a 19-second breath. So if you're doing that, you're breathing about 3.1, 3.2 breaths per minute. if you're watching this video and you are one of those people who is a pretty chronic hyperventilator, maybe you're a mouth breather, maybe you're chronically stuffy in the nose, I would very much implore you to not do this exercise out the gate. You may want to start with a 2-size box or 3-size box, but if you do like this exercise, you can make your own modifications. I would recommend perhaps that you just try reducing some of the numbers here. So maybe stick with around a 4-second inhalation. We could go down to a 3-second inhalation. Maybe you would be more comfortable holding for about 4 seconds at the top, and then maybe you could exhale for 5 seconds. And this is a much more doable exercise. That's now down, instead of a 19-second breath, that's down to a 12-second breath. And you're starting to get the idea. You don't have to take that exact modification as I've laid it out, but you can see how you can learn to adapt the length of breaths, or the inhale or the exhale, the length of these inhalations, exhalations, and the holds at the top or bottom. Modify these to make an exercise that you like, something that's kind of popular, and make it into your own. So I've modified the length of the inhale, the length of the hold at the top, and the exhale. And with the 4-7-8 breath, there is no hold at the bottom. I don't think that most people would want to hold at the bottom. 3 breaths per minute is already challenging enough carbon dioxide wise, even for elite athletes. Now, we can look at something like cadence breathing, and we can do the same thing. So if you're not familiar with cadence breathing is the idea of there's no holds. It's just a clocking of the inhale and then to the next exhalation. So you would learn from the Buteco Clinic International that one good cadence breath timing is a 4-second inhale and a 6-second exhale. So it's 4 in, 6 out, with a natural pause at the bottom. This is what the Buteco Clinic would call a functional breathing. So once a person becomes a functional breather on autopilot, they would want to be breathing for this length of breath. That's about 6 breaths per minute. And if you are not already doing this naturally, you can do this as an exercise: 4 in, 6 out, 4 in, 6 out. But perhaps this exercise is going to be too challenging for you. 6 breaths per minute. Is that something that you qualify to do? Is that too intense for you? Well, if so, you could take it down to 3 seconds in, 5 seconds out, or you could take it down to 2 seconds in, 3 seconds out. The focal point of cadence breathing is, if you didn't pick up on it, is the exhale. We want it to be about 1.5 times the length of the inhalation. So if my inhalation is, say, 10 seconds, I want the exhalation to be 15 seconds. That's very large, but I'm just using more round numbers to kind of illustrate the idea for you. So with the cadence breathing, the exhale we can see is 1.5 times the length of the inhale. But again, take it down to the modification that you need. When I first got into the world of breath, I was a horrible breather. I had a very low carbon dioxide tolerance score, and a 4-7-8 breath sent me reeling. Way too intense for me. I was the kind of person who I had to start on the 2 box. Now I do the 4 box. It's kind of in my kind of just testing the waters with me zone now, but I had to work up to that. But I did have to start small. Resonance breathing is one that anyone who's read James Nestor's book Breath has probably heard of. The idea in resonance breathing is that you match the length of the inhale and the exhalation. That comes from the observation of people praying. So some researchers were looking at people doing certain meditations, prayers, and chants, and they were noticing a trend of kind of cross-culturally. There are many prayers that the breathing timing that is happening as a result of those prayers ends up being 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out, which has led to the advent of people practicing resonance breathing. 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out. However, as we've talked about from some of these other exercises, this is an 11-second breath, which is just under 6 breaths per minute. So maybe about 5.5 breaths per minute. I think it's be closer mathematically, somewhere like 5.7. But 5.7 breaths per minute can be too slow of a breath for some people. And so feel free to play with changing the timing of resonance breathing. You could change this to 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out, or even 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out. So, not getting egotistical with your breathing exercises. I could see a conversation happening where maybe two friends are watching this video and they're like, yeah, man, like, I'm on the 4 box breath. And someone's like, oh, well, I'm only on like the 3 or 2 size breath. And it kind of becomes an ego, it's kind of a dick swinging competition with these guys. And really, we don't want to be engaged in that with this. It should be very gentle. We want to meet the breath where it's at for us. And we can build ourselves to the more challenging exercises. So if you're not at a 4 size box, you can practice the 2 enough to build to the 3, and you can practice the 3 enough to build to the 4. And the same with all these other exercises. You can build to the point where you can do a 4, 7, 8 and feel very comfortable and not challenged by it. And of course, if you're on the other side of this, you can make these exercises more challenging. If you are completely fine with a 4 size box, feel free to go to a 5 size box. What is that? That's a 20-second breath. That'd be about 3 breaths per minute. Some people can do that. Probably a very elite athlete could do that and maybe not even find it challenging. Most of you will definitely, who are watching this video, find a 5 box challenging. So beware. If you are prone to panic attacks, please do not try the 5 size box. And similarly with resonance breathing, if you want to build up to 7 in, 7 out, feel free to do so. You can modify this however you want. But the point I'm getting to here is that your breath is yours. And these exercises, these are all things that some people just came up with somewhere. You don't have to adhere specifically to the exact exercise as you see laid out in some random article you read on the internet or some random YouTube video. You can make modifications to make the exercise relaxing for you or challenging enough for you where you are at with your breathing right now in that journey. So I hope you got something out of this, and good luck out there. Please start small. Don't push yourself too much. You got this.